All right. So and again, this is another thing I've learned too. First book is called Our Lady of the Overlook. So that's the first book. Second book is called Quiet Whispers of the Overlook. Also on all the same stuff. If you look up one, you'll see both because it's book two of the trilogy.
Hello, and welcome to Story Power, a bi monthly podcast I created because I'm an unabashed story lover. Stories have had a huge impact on my life, starting with the family movie night discussions my parents instituted when I was a child. I want to share that love with you. As cognitive scientist Roger C. Shanks says, humans are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. I'm making it my mission to not only spread the love of stories, but all the valuable things they teach us about human nature and relationships. We humans are emotional creatures, and stories help us examine our emotions from a comfortable distance. They also help us walk in the shoes of the characters to help us see the world in new ways. It's my hope you gain some valuable insights from my guests.
Hello, Story Power listeners. Today is episode 145, and I'm talking to Rodney Carpentier. Carpentier, is that how you say your name?
That is perfect.
Oh, shoo, I got it right. And I just wanted to let you know your episode's going to air on January 28th. So
Okay.
we're not too far away from when it's going to air.
Yeah, not too
Uh,
far.
so Rodney, I've been reading your book all day and I want to welcome you to the show. I'm not quite finished. I think I'm like on the last two chapters of it.
Okay.
So, which is probably a good thing because we don't want to give away the ending.
No, not quite.
So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, oh my goodness, you have quite the resume, and the book is really fascinating. So I want to know how you got the idea for the book, and are you still are you still a police officer?
I am. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still
Oh,
active.
so you're working and writing at the same time. That's a lot.
Well, not quite at the same time. The little bit of downtime I get, I try to write.
Well, I know it's not exactly, I mean, but I
Yes,
know how.
yes.
It's hard. It's hard when you're working to try to fit in
hmm
writing. So, so how did you get the idea for this book? And do you live anywhere close to where this story takes place?
So I'll take the second part first. So the book takes place in the Catskill Mountains of New York State. I grew up actually in the valley, in the
Oh,
Hudson Valley region.
oh,
But we'd go up occasionally to visit. And then in the last 10 years or so, we started hiking up there. My
oh.
wife and I and a friend. And there's a specific challenge you can do called the Catskill Mountain 3500s.
Hmm.
So we decided that we were going to do that challenge, and it's basically 35 mountains over 3,500 feet, and it's like Pokemon. You got to collect them all, and it took us a while to do. And our one companion actually fell out after a while, and in the end, it was just
Oh,
my wife and I that finished the challenge.
uh-huh.
But we were going up there for 7, 8, 9 years, and we started kind of liking it. And the more we were up there, we started looking at property. And
Uh-huh.
about 3 years ago, we purchased a real fixer-upper on a little bit of land, kind of out of the way, and we've been renovating it ever since. And someday, when I'm able to retire in about 3-ish years or so,
Uh-huh.
we're looking to move up there full time and enjoy retirement and hopefully have a lot more of that writing time.
Yeah, really. So, this challenge that you did, was it a continuous challenge or do you do part of it and then come back and do another part of it?
It's kind of individual choice. Again, we did it over, I I think it was a total of 6 or 7 years it
Oh
took us
yeah,
to do.
okay.
So we'd go out and we'd do initially our first year we went in the springtime and we did I think two of the mountains.
Ah.
And then the next year we did maybe three or four. And then we
Hmm.
added a fall trip and we would do a couple more. And every time we seemed to add more and more. And as we got in better shape, we could do some of the longer hikes.
Oh
Some of the mountains are basically one after the other.
yeah.
So you could
Hmm.
go out for a really long day and do
Hmm.
maybe 14 miles and you could bag three or four peaks all at once.
Oh.
Other ones are kind of isolated and all by themselves. So, you were driving out to wherever these were
Yeah.
to find the trailhead and then hiking up. Some of them have established and marked out trails, and you're just following what's already there. Other
Hmm.
ones are what they call trailless. There are what we call herd paths, like where people have gone up
Oh, right,
over
right.
years you can try to follow, but you could also get lost very easily.
Hmm.
Um, and we eventually, for the very last mountain, we had to, we were learning orienteering and working with the compass, and we got so lost. It was springtime, but it was cold and rainy and miserable. And
Oh.
to get to this mountain, you had to climb two other 3500s in order to go out to this one because it was so remote. It's called Rocky,
Uh-huh.
and that was our last one. And eventually we figured out our coordinates and we just straight there. I mean, through whatever, getting smacked in the face by all sorts of stuff.
Oh.
And we finally got there, and a lot of the trailless ones have canisters that you just, you have to take the
Ah.
notebook out and you write your names down and you put the notebook back for the next people. So
Uh-huh.
we did that. I think we finished in 2021. So it's been a couple years
Oh
since we
wow.
finished.
Oh yeah.
Um, but we were just going up to that area in the Catskills, and when it came time to write, which I'll get to the first part of your question,
Uh-huh.
to write when I got this idea, I needed a setting, and I couldn't think of a better one.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that
So
you're really familiar with.
correct. Yeah. But not like everyday familiar. It still had some mystery and it still had,
Right.
that magical quality of, oh, I'm not seeing this every single day. It was a
Hmm.
special thing and you could still use your imagination because you weren't sitting, it wasn't my daily commute where I'm like, oh, I see that, I see this area
Hmm.
every single day and then I'm
Hmm.
so ingrained in it. So it kind of had familiarity, but a little bit of distance also when it came to the
Yeah.
setting.
Yeah. So, so where do you live?
I presently live in Rockland County, New York, which is
Uh-huh.
about 40 miles north of New York City,
Hmm.
on the west side of the Hudson River,
Hmm.
right at where the Tappan Zee Bridge is.
Oh, okay.
This is
I am not familiar with that area. I'm a Western girl. I was
okay.
born in Iowa, but it's only because my dad was in the Air Force. And so I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and now I live in Arizona. So ask me things about the West, but I've only been to New York City once, and then up to Boston, through Boston to Vermont, where my cousin and his mom and dad were alive when we went to
Okay.
visit them. But yeah, so that's all I know really, in terms. Oh, I take it back. We had to go to Washington D.C. on that trip. But yeah, I don't know much about the East Coast except that I loved the Vermont and New Hampshire and Maine. We had a friend in Maine that went to visit. And I've had a guest who lives in upper New York, and it just sounds like a really great place to go visit.
Oh, if it's fabulous. Outdoor activities are plentiful,
Hmm.
hiking and skiing, camping and doing all those
Hmm.
wonderful things. You have the Catskills, you have the Adirondacks, you have
Hmm.
the Finger Lakes region. If you like wine, they have a great wine country over there.
Oh, oh.
Um, and we kind of explored Western New York a little bit more this past summer. We went out
Uh-huh.
camping. There's a state park out there that is just humongous. Like it takes like half an hour, 45 minutes to drive through it.
Wow.
And we went out there and camped. We kind of came back, stayed at another area called Watkins Glen, which
Hmm.
was beautiful. And of course, up in the the northwestern part, you have Buffalo and you have Niagara Falls and all that.
Yeah.
It's all wonderful. Everybody, typically thinks of New York and they think of New York City and buildings and congestion. And really it's a completely different world once
Well,
you kind of
yeah.
get north of where I live. But even where I live, technically, where I live in Rockland County is still rural,
Hmm.
whereas, houses aren't like right on top of each other. There's
Yes,
like
right.
a little bit of space, and we have deer that wander around, so it's rural.
Uh-huh.
But the up in the Catskills, you have acres between you, and
Yeah, yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, we have acres too. I think we have 4 acres is where we live on. For in the county of Cochise County, it's 4 acre lots or 5 acre lots,
okay,
something like that. So our closest neighbors are not super close, which is really nice. And we have
yes.
lots of wildlife. Yeah. So, wow, that's great. So now, one of the things I loved about your book, and this is not something that all authors do, even books that I really love, but I loved the descriptions of the body language that you use because it was like I'm a really visual person and I love movies for the reason that I can look at the body language and the facial expressions and listen to tone of voice and get clues from that. Of course, my background's in theater too, so that's partly why I like that. But it was like I could see the characters' body language and it was almost like I could see it and feel what they were feeling. So I really liked that about your book.
I appreciate you saying that. It was kind of a conscious choice. I'm also, I would say I'm more audio than I'm visual when it
Hmm.
comes to learning and stuff. Like I listen to a lot of audiobooks,
Hmm.
but I like really descriptive audiobooks. I can kind of see it in my mind's eye a little bit. But I love the subtleties of films, especially some of the great directors
Hmm.
that look at those little idiosyncrasies. Like a big one I always it always sticks out in my head is Quentin Tarantino in Inglourious Bastards.
Hmm.
Three versus three,
Hmm.
and how subtle that
Hmm.
is if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Or I mean, that whole movie, every character kind of is saying one thing, but their body's saying a different thing. And
Right.
I really like that aspect. So when I was writing, I'm like, well, you know, kind of to paint that picture a little bit and kind of understand where people are coming from.
Yes. Do you have to have that kind of training as a police officer where you're reading body language and that kind of thing?
It's something you kind of develop. It's something you train.
Mm.
You want to kind of understand. There are specific classes I took early in my career, detecting deception. Knowing where people are looking, knowing certain ticks you have when you're lying versus when you're telling
Mm.
the truth. Like, when you're trying to lie, you'll if you're pleading innocence when you're guilty, you will um repeat things over and over again. Like you're trying to convince yourself, you're telling your brain, we're innocent, we're innocent, we're innocent. So act innocent, so there's a lot of repeating things with that. Or you talk about body language, you distance yourself and you get away from whatever that is. So there's that, and then there's detecting danger, reading body language to know whether or not somebody you're interviewing, maybe on the street or in a less controlled environment, is going to take a swing at you, whether or not
Yeah.
they have a weapon. So those are just little things, you get trained, but also just experiencing things.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
I took an interview and interrogation class when I was an investigator. Um,
Mm.
and you just watch and you look at those little quirks about people. So it was
Yeah.
definitely kind of natural to kind of think in that way when I was writing.
Yeah. Yes, right. Because it seemed like I love the early in the book when they're bowling and they're just giving Mike such a hard time. It was like that must be a it must be a cop thing, a policeman thing.
Oh, yeah. You don't let anybody get away with anything in that, which was another goal. I really wanted to humanize and make the law enforcement characters, real people.
Yeah, right.
You read a lot of books, you watch a lot of movies, and everybody thinks cops are the T-1000, like just they wake
Right.
up in
Yeah.
that uniform every day
Yeah.
and they're just in their police car. And it's
Yeah.
not that, public safety in general, we unwind, and that's how we do
Mhm,
things. We
mhm.
have that kind of gallows humor, and you only know, and I guess it's also, I mean, I've experienced it just being a man and being in more manly professions.
Mhm.
Growing up, I worked in construction,
Oh,
and they want to know whether they can count on you
right.
and how you're going to be, and if you're
Yeah.
going to be, it's a strength to be able to take that abuse and keep coming back. You kind of
Yeah.
earn your stripes that way. I still remember the first day I was working construction. I was asked to go get a length of pipe, and they weren't going to give me um, tape measure to go do it. So they encouraged me to, use my imagination on different things I can use to measure out the pipe. And it was a joke, and,
Right.
it's embarrassing, but that's how you learn things. I learned that, when I was a state correction officer. They would bust your chops. Like, I remember being, in New York State, at least, when you're a brand new correction officer, they call you a new jack. So
Oh.
I'm working at uh, a max state prison, on the behavioral health unit,
Oh.
um, which were inmates who had, some kind of behavior problem, mental health issue.
Mhm.
And, so they had a lot of staff on there, and we were there one night training, learning things. And one of the more senior guys, I wouldn't say he's a super senior guy, came over and to a bunch of us that were sitting around, and he's like, "I'm not doing the snack count." I was like, okay, well, I'll do the snack count. What is that? And they're like, oh, you got to go to every cell and ask the inmate if they want a cookie or if he wants pretzels or something like that. And so I got my little notebook out, and I went over and I did as I was told. And
Right.
I went to the first one, and I realized right away that I was being played,
Uh-huh.
because the inmate's like, oh, I get a cookie. I'm like, I see what happened. And a guy came over and he took the piece of paper. He goes, I'll take care of the rest of it. It was, it's a
Yeah.
game, and it's how, in that world, how you test whether somebody can take it. So Mike's a rookie, um,
Right.
in
Yeah.
this. So these guys got to figure out if he's worthy of this,
Hmm.
and especially, again, living in his father's shadow. I know we haven't really talked about a lot of the stuff in the book, but um, they know his dad and know what kind of man and what kind of person his father was. They want to see if he's got the same chops.
Right. Well, some people don't like me to tell too much about the book or
Okay.
they don't want to talk too much about the book because they don't want to give it, don't want to give it away. I happen to be one of those people who it's okay if I know spoilers. I'm still wanting to know how those spoilers connect to each other.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to give spoilers away if you don't want me to, but yeah, I think it's interesting at the beginning of the book when Mike is sort of all kind of closed down, if you want to say that. And it's like, what is his story? What is his story? And then little by little, you reveal it until there's like this big surprise about what he was doing before he became the police officer. And yeah, and the whole father-son relationship, which for Mike was pretty much non-existent. And then he finds out why, which is, I like those kinds of stories where you have an attitude about someone else and then you find out more about them and find out,
Hmm.
oh, I see why they had that attitude or why they treated me like that or whatever it is. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, well, I find, one of the, I was trying to figure out how to write this and how to be a
Mhm.
writer. One of the big things I kept hearing is don't drop a lot of backstory. You
Mm.
want to drop your reader right into things and let them discover
Mhm.
stuff as other
Hmm.
characters discover stuff, or as they discover
Hmm.
stuff about themselves. And
Yeah.
you can do Once Upon a Time and explain everything in a huge prologue, or just
Right.
drop them in and this is the situation, and okay, where are we going? And just
Yeah.
and we'll take it, and I really wanted to do that. Not to get too far ahead of things, but if you like where things are going in book one, book two, this is a trilogy. So book
Yes,
two
right.
takes Mike in a completely different direction. I think you might like
Oh.
that. And the third book I'm still writing, but
Uh-huh.
I'm in the first part of the second act of that, and I came up with a great device for adding a lot of backstory and learning about a character that we don't learn a lot about in the first two books. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about it. Like I'm finding out a lot about some of these characters in this third book, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how they've been the whole time, but now I can kind of let them free because it's a trilogy, so everything's going to end, at the end of this. So I,
Yeah.
I can kind of play a little bit fast and loose as long as I'm starting to tie up some of those things. So, Mike and all these characters, continue on
Oh,
after the
good.
end of at the end of Our Lady.
Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah, and now did you traditionally publish this or did you use a hybrid publisher or did you independently publish it?
I'm independently published. Um, so I So to go back to the very beginning, the idea came to me in May of 2022. I was actually working a double, um,
Oh,
uh, uh, and I started at 3 in the afternoon, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was tired, and there wasn't a lot going on, and I needed to kind of keep my wits about me. So
yeah.
I was sitting there, kind of bobbing my head at my desk. At the time, I was a sergeant, so a first line supervisor,
Mm.
and this idea popped in my head,
Mhm.
and I kind of was like, all right, well, that's here, so let's see where this brings us. So I kind of started sketching out the original stuff. Then that the dramatic question at the center of that kind of just
Mhm.
took me on this journey. So I had to learn how to write through YouTube and podcast episodes, kind of like on structure and things.
Mhm.
um I finished the manuscript in the winter of 2023, like December, January, and I ended up finding an editor, a book, a cover artist,
Mhm.
and a proofreader. And by the summer of 24, I had everything kind of completed and ready to go.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't have the courage. And I went to a writing convention called Killer Nashville, which is
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
a pretty big one.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it was a last minute decision, and the all the things aligned so that I could go. And I got down there, and I decided to do a lot of the breakout sessions on the business end of things. And the first class I took was a
Oh.
master class that I dropped a little extra money on, and it was how to present yourself as a professional author, like, from
Mhm.
day one, fake it till you make it kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was hooked. I went through that whole weekend. I met a bunch of different writers at different spots in their career, guys that were desperate to get traditionally published and were, querying and doing all this stuff. And then a bunch of others that are like, no, I just independently published my stuff. So while I was sitting there in Nashville in August of 24, I decided I'm going to self-publish the first book. And I said, I'm going to do this by the end of October. So I just kind of went
Yeah.
for it. Um, and while I was coming out, I started working on the second book, and I managed, follow the same kind of path, and I got the second one out August of this year. So,
You are a fast writer.
well, I got ahead of myself. Fortunately, the third one's dragging a little bit because I got promoted at work back in July,
Oh.
and yeah, I'm really important at work, and it's ruining my life.
Yeah. Oh, when I started teaching, my background's in theater and I was teaching drama to start with, and then I had to go to another school and I was teaching English. Oh my gosh, all the grading. But that first 2 years, I was going to school full time, I was directing plays, and I was teaching full time. And I didn't have time for anything. I didn't have any, and
Hmm.
even when I was teaching English, I didn't really have time for anything because I was also directing plays at this other school. So, and it was an hour away. That school was an hour
Mm.
away. So, but when I started writing my novel, it took me a long time. It took me 7 years. Well, it was 7 years from when I started it to, well, actually, I picked up an old something that I had started. Um, and then when we published it, my husband's a graphic artist and he could lay out the book and he did the maps and
Hmm.
he could do the cover and all that. And he also helped edit it, but I had a couple of writing friends who helped me shape it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's true about not much backstory. I love going in, starting like a book in the middle and then slowly bringing in the back story and then going, sometimes going forward. Sometimes you have to go forward and then go back again,
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
I kind of like that structure. I really love that structure in movies.
Yes.
um where like oh, Cloud Atlas is the ultimate,
Hmm. Yep.
uh 6 storylines intertwined. um but yeah, I think that I wrote all of the backstory for my characters, and some of it I stuck into the book, and my friend said, "Oh no, you don't need to have that in the book. You need to know it." And I went, "Oh yeah, okay." I Because I was used to acting and directing,
Yeah.
and needing to know all the author needs to know it, but the people don't need to know it. The people who are reading it don't always need to know it. If especially if you leave little clues, like
Yeah.
that's one thing movies do is they give you a line or two. That's the clue to something, something else,
Yeah.
which
And
I
it's
thought you did really well.
Oh, thank you. I've used, I've done like a teeny tiny bit of theater. I was in plays when I was in high school.
Oh, cool.
But I've always enjoyed films, always enjoyed going to plays and stuff and listening
Hmm.
to, you know, the real craftspeople that act and the ones not like with the immersive actors, but the ones that sit down and say, look at a character and become that character because they understand all the aspects, even if it's not something that's coming out
Right.
in the film or in the
Yeah.
story. It's still in the back of their head, so it's
Right.
influencing the way that
Right.
the character is, even though it's not something that's said.
Right.
um
Yeah.
and there's a ton of great actors that do that. I mean, I could, start listing, but I always thought that was really cool. And then so as a writer, knowing where things used to be, so I
Hmm.
wrote the first book I plotted the heck out of. I found the Save the Cat structure.
Hmm.
And that's
Oh, I
what
have
kind
not
of
read those books. Yeah.
I haven't read them, so I got this idea.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I started mapping out the characters. And actually, I was writing a parallel thing. It was Mike and it was Maggie. So you were doing a chapter of Mike, a chapter of Maggie, a chapter of Mike, a chapter of Meg. And I was going back and forth. And I'm reading my Robert McKee, and I'm reading about the
Uh-huh.
hero's journey, and I'm doing all these
Uh-huh.
things. And I'm like,
Hmm.
so I'm creating these things, but I'm not really feeling it. It's not really
Hmm.
gelling for me.
Hmm.
And so, and again, working on that backstory and for context. And I was listening to podcasts and things, and I found a podcast. And this book coach was talking about Save the Cat, and they
Oh
talked about, and she talked about Save the Cat in context of the Hunger Games. And I had seen those films. I had not read
my.
the books, but I
Hmm.
had seen the films,
Hmm.
and that's where it unlocked for me because I'm like, his um hitting those hitting those beats gave me something to focus on. So
Right.
the first book, I had every single one of those beats, the opening image, the theme stated beat, all the
Hmm.
debate, and it just helped um send me in a direction. And
Yeah.
so I plotted the heck out of that first book. Second book, I started coming up with the major beats
Uh-huh.
instead
Uh-huh.
of, every single thing.
Hmm.
So having that inciting incident, what the story was going to turn on, what was going to make something change,
Right.
and having that midpoint where, all is lost, or, the false victory,
Hmm.
the false defeat, and then moving towards that, that rock bottom moment, and then getting to that climax and knowing
Right.
what those were, then kind of writing to those points, like, well, how am I going to build up the tension, or how am I going to build
Right.
this up so that when this happens, it really is a
Yeah.
turn,
Right.
and I think those, those little things helped me. The story circle was another good one that
Hmm.
I had in the back of my mind. The
Hmm.
is it Roy, not Royland, was the guy, he worked, he did Rick and Morty, but he also did like Community, and
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
I can't think of his name. Um, but he talks about, the, how things go in the sitcom world, and just understanding
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
ups and downs of a story. And I kind of, that just unlocked everything for me.
Yeah. Wow, you did intensive work. Me, I'm like, well, of course, I'm not doing. See, this is I belong to Prolific Writer's Life, and one of the guys that I associate with, I go to his writing. They have blocks of time when you can do your writing, and he writes mysteries. I think he's written like 13 or 14 mysteries. And he says, "Oh, you got to plot. You got to plot." Well, that's not me. I just start, I know kind of where it's going to begin and end, but I don't know all the middle stuff. So I guess they call that a pantser. But then if you're doing a mystery, you have to plot it out, I would think.
Yes and no. And again, again, you're almost to the end of book one. It's not a traditional mystery in the sense that it, you know, you know, yes,
Who done it?
somebody, there's a little bit of who done it, but it's
Hmm.
also,
Hmm.
looking at all these different characters and trying to
Hmm.
understand their motivations. But it's not
Yeah,
really like, it's not set up like, oh, this guy's a suspect, oh, that guy's a suspect, oh, we need to
right.
look at this guy. It's not Agatha Christie,
No,
where, it could only be these people and these are their motivations. It's kind of more, you know I wouldn't
uh,
say realistic, but just, some violence is just random,
right,
and it doesn't always have to make sense.
right.
Again, I know how it's all going to end.
Yeah.
And the only other person that knows is my daughter, because,
Does she
we'll
read
talk.
them?
She she hasn't read them. There's, no spoiler there, but it's, there's some language, but there's no real
Right,
violence, and there's
right,
no, gratuitous sexual stuff. So
right.
it's rather clean. Um, and, she's somewhat mature, but she's interested in the whole thing. She's got all her friends in her school, some of her school
Uh-huh,
teachers that'll look it up. So she understands. So she'll ask me questions, and she'll be like, "Is it
uh-huh.
true that it's going to be this one?" And I'm like, you can't tell anybody, but yeah, that's the way I'm going with it. And it's actually changed once or twice in my head, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It's too obvious. It can't be that person. So now
Yeah.
I need to turn it on its head, so a little bit. And with the third book, I'm also trying to leave a couple more, you know, a little bit of red herrings and a little bit of,
Yeah.
off the stuff. But
Right.
um, for me, because I knew it was going to be a trilogy, I wanted to wrap certain things up at the end of the first book,
Hmm.
knowing there was going to be a middle book where it,
Hmm.
it was going to be Empire Strikes Back, where you end up with more questions than, Star Wars. No, Star Wars is perfect because the end of the first one, you have closure.
Huh?
The rebels win, they destroy the Death Star. They all get awards at the end. Chewbacca screams, and it's over. It's like, they could have ended the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
And um but then you have Empire Strikes Back, and at the end, everybody's damaged. Han's been turned to carbonite. Luke loses a hand. It's, where do we go from here?
Right.
And that's where I kind of leave things at the end of book three. At the end of book two is,
Too. Hmm.
everybody's kind of been affected in a certain way. There's a
Yeah.
character missing, and we don't know where that person is. So leading into that, leading into book three, I knew I had a lot of questions,
Hmm.
and now I kind of got to go back and remember some of the, I know I made a lot of commitments to the reader that I was going to
Mm-hmm.
close things out. So I also have a checklist of, kind of like a punch list at the end of construction to say, well, I got to make sure I wrap up that storyline. I got to make sure I wrap
Mm-hmm.
up that. And I got to, so I'm trying to do all those things pretty consciously too. So I kind of
Yes.
wrote a bunch of checks that I have to cash now, without
Yeah.
ruining, continuity. But I also have a very good editor, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping she catches a lot of that stuff. So if she's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, you can't do that because in book one you did this. I'm hoping she can help me
Yeah.
with that too.
Yeah, I know the timeline. It's almost like timelines. I have two timelines in my book, and I have to remember. And the in the second book, that is out for with beta readers, okay, this is how old they are in this part, and then this is how many years. I have to do the timeline thing. I have to always figure out the
Yeah.
timeline thing. But one thing I thought about your book, though, was it's not really a whodunit. What it is more like is how are the well, this is how I look at it. How are the characters affected by the two events?
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
does it affect them? And they all have different uh reactions to it, you know. And that's one of the things I liked. It was like little character studies of all these people of how they reacted to the two events. So,
And some of the parallels, and then again, the character of Maggie is really important because she's the complete stranger to all this. Like,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I tried to bring her in from as far away as possible.
mm-hmm,
um
mm-hmm.
and it's something I'm considering doing, is because, like I said, I was doing dual timelines originally, and
Mm,
once I got
mm-hmm.
Save the Cat, I said I'm focusing on Mike. This is Mike's
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Even though my original idea focused on Maggie's experience, I'm like, no, this is Mike's story. Let me focus on Mike. So I took all the material I had written for Maggie,
Mm-hmm,
and I was originally doing it as kind of like a Patreon thing. I was releasing like chapter at a time
mm-hmm.
kind of thing. That kind of fell apart because I ran out of chapters I already had written, and while trying to finish the second book and do all the things and work and have a family and all that other stuff, it kind of
Yeah.
fell by the wayside. So I may take that and do like a novella teaser between, keep people sated in between the
Yes.
second book and the third book.
Yeah.
And this will also help set up the third book a little bit because it's going to introduce characters in the third book that have to exist in the third book,
Mm-hmm.
that we haven't met yet. And I think
Oh,
I might
that's
use
fun.
that as a little bit of a marketing device also, but also to get all this stuff out because there were so many great things. You talk about character studies, looking at Maggie and where she's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and and hers, it's not going to be a mystery. It's just this character study of a woman who is, doing her best to have a family,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with stress, and then all of a sudden this bigger stressor comes on.
Shift.
And it'll kind of pick up where the first book started, but you're getting all this backstory,
Yeah.
as she kind of has to deal with some stuff. So
Yeah.
so I'm thinking about doing that, and then I started writing a short story. Um, it was specifically had to deal with older older characters.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna submit it to something, and so I took some of the older characters from the the book, like Roscoe and
And
George
George?
and
Uh-huh.
George, and there's a character that gets introduced in the second book, who is Charlie's best friend from
Oh.
growing up. His name is
Uh-huh.
Skip.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all meeting at a bar, and it's right around when Charlie dies. And there's some backstory in there that I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
introducing too. So, so I'm kind of playing around with
Yeah.
this whole world,
Yeah.
and I was listening to one of your earlier episodes, kind of in preparation, and talking about spin-offs and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
I thought, hey, it keeps this world alive and kind of gives different perspectives on these characters. Because again, you want to get them in the context of
Mm-hmm.
whatever our narrator is telling you. You're not getting all
Yes.
this other stuff, because
Yeah.
we haven't talked about point of view, but that was something I was really focused on when I was writing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like the point of view of the journalist or the podcaster. What's his
yeah,
name? Oh, Tim.
Tim,
Tim.
Figgy.
Yeah, he just kind of inserts himself in the story every once in a while, and I kind of like that, you know.
Yeah,
Okay, because not everything else is in the first person, but his are all in the first person, and I kind of like that. That he just, oh, okay, I'm going to insert myself here now.
yeah. It's confused some readers, but that's why, that note from the author section in the beginning
Oh
helps
yeah,
kind of set up what he's doing.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
I stole that device from a couple other really, really good writers,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they do it really well. I was just trying to,
Hmm.
mimic them a little bit to kind of have this first person, kind of a framed narrative a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but also, Tim's also kind of an unreliable narrator too. So you kind of gotta
I like those too.
take, it's not the murder Roger Ackroyd, but it's
Yeah.
it's interesting to kind of not trust the person who's telling you the story the whole way.
Yeah. Well, there's a really famous classic movie, Laura. I don't know if you know that movie.
Yep, I know Laura. Yep.
And the unreliable narrator in that
Hmm.
one. Yeah. I kind of like that. I like the unreliable narrator. So, because I guess I like puzzles, movie
Hmm.
puzzles, or plot puzzles. So yeah, that's kind of fun to have those unreliable char characters saying things that aren't really true. And do I believe it or not? Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, wow, that's really great. So, now when is the second book already out?
Yep. Second book's already out. Came out on August 29th.
Oh,
That one's called Quiet Whispers of the Overlook. So that's out on all the platforms.
okay.
Also, in the third book, Um, I've been doing a couple of podcasts this week, and somebody asked me, kind of, oh, when's the third book coming out? And I'm like, well, you can't hold me to it, but I'm trying to get it out by middle of 2026. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get through where I'm
Mm-hmm.
at right now, but I have a really good direction that I'm heading in. It's just finding that precious, precious time to focus.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of one of the reasons, because once I sent my second novel off for beta readers, I got the idea for the memoir that I'd been thinking about writing since 2008. And so I just started writing it. But with Prolific Writer's Life, I have an hour on a Monday and an hour on a Friday when I can sign up with other and have writing time with other
Hmm.
writers, and we check in with each other. And I said, I'm just going to do that because I have so many creative projects, not just this, but other
Hmm.
that I have to keep myself, that's a good thing to keep me moving forward is to have at least an hour, you know, on Monday and an hour on Friday. And then sometimes I do sit and get a chance to do a little bit of writing, but I do a lot of editing because I have a YouTube channel with my sister where we talk about classic films. And then I have this. And so, every Wednesday I'm producing something. So I'm always editing and preparing and getting
Hmm.
them scheduled and yeah, that kind of thing. Um,
But you're
so
busy. That's good. Busy is always good. You have things to
yeah,
occupy you, and that's
yeah.
really cool.
Well, and I'm retired, so I have a lot of time,
Yeah,
supposedly.
I'm looking forward to that, to having that time supposedly too.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband has been retired for about a year and a half, and he says, I'm still trying to figure out how to be retired. What? Because he's really creative too. And so, yeah, it takes a while to figure out what you want to focus on.
I always tell
But
people, like, I can't wait to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
that's right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Wow. So I'm glad that you're motivated, though, to keep working on your novels because I just thought it was really fun. And I had three podcasts kind of close together and I had to read all the books. And unfortunately, yours was the last one. I was like, I just started it yesterday. And so I'm reading fast as I can to finish the book. Um, And I'm close now. I'll probably finish it tonight. So yeah, that was really, really, it's really fun. I love doing that. I love being able to talk to the authors about, the characters and their process and that kind of thing. Because some of my podcast guests have said, people usually don't take the time to read my book and it's or listen to my music or whatever. And I think that's sad, personally.
Yeah,
I don't.
I think, there are people who just want to, mass consume whatever is the popular thing. But there are a lot of people, a
Mhm.
lot of people ask about AI. Oh, how's AI going to affect this? How's AI going to affect that? I'm
Oh,
like,
right.
you're always going to have the purists that are going to want something that was created by a human being,
Hmm.
a person with
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
soul. And
Yeah.
you're always going to have that. It's the same thing. I do a lot of in-person stuff. Where I live in New York, we have these things called street fairs.
Oh,
Every
cool.
every town in my county has a street fair, and I'll have people walk up all the time, and they'll ask, oh, are you on ebook? Because I can't really read the print books anymore because of their age or
Whatever. Yeah.
whatever. They're not able to do it. So I do the ebooks. I'm like, well, I'm on ebook. Like I said, I'm an audiobook consumer myself.
Right.
I'm working with a narrator right now to get my audiobook out there so
Cool.
I can start doing that.
Yeah.
And then you again, you have the people that like, no, I need to hold the book.
Right.
It's mine. I can, open it, I can dog ear it, and I can do all these things, and they're really into that. So it's really, again, a lot of it's marketing, but it's
Right.
knowing your audience and
Hmm.
being able to say, yeah, I have a way that you can consume my creative venture in that
Yeah.
way, and
Yeah.
obviously there some limitations on certain things, but they're just being prepared for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you're always going to have the purists that want to see something creative,
Yes.
that don't
Right.
want to see
Yeah.
a rehash or a retelling. They want to see something fresh and new. And even if it has its flaws, sometimes you love it for all its flaws. Like
Right.
there's a ton of campy movies I remember growing up with.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I watched Monster Squad was one of my favorite movies growing up from the 80s. Love that
Yeah.
movie. And I watch it now and I'm like, man, if they made this today, they would screw it all up. But they
Hmm.
would have so many, like you could, just you could see where you could make that story just a little bit better and create,
Yeah.
kind of work on these characters. But the characters were there and the concept was so great. But it's got its flaws, but people love it for its flaws also. Like
Yes.
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
It just has to exist. And as long as, you're not totally, talking gibberish,
Right.
there are people who will fall in love with it.
Yeah. Right.
And I'd rather connect with one or two readers and miss 10 other people, but have two people that'll come back and talk to me. I've had since I released the second book, I've had people I sold the first book to in the springtime. Second book came out. They actually sought me out. She's like, "Oh, I heard you
Oh,
were going to be here, and I really want to get the second book." I'm like, "Well, here it is," you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a really cool feeling, it's not
That
happening,
is.
thousands of times, but it's happening one or two times, and that's a
Yeah.
cool feeling, and having
Yeah, it
that
is.
connection.
Yeah. I do almost exclusively ebooks because we have bookshelves in almost every room of our house, so we don't have any room for we
Yeah.
don't have any more room for physical books. Uh and we're getting to the age now where we're gonna start getting rid of stuff and I'm
Hmm.
looking at my bookshelves and it's like, oh, I already did get rid of a whole bunch of plays that I had. I gave them to the guy who took over my acting classes and for scenes and things, But he's
Yeah.
a theater professional. He has a lot too, but he was grateful to have what I had because some of the stuff I had is pretty old from when I was going to take my theater classes. So, yeah, oh wow, that's so great. I'm glad that you're writing and you're just going to keep doing it once you retire. That's going to
Oh
be
yeah.
great.
Yeah. I have plans. I have a whole series that's been percolating in my head. Um,
Another series.
Yeah, but like like a Michael Conley series, like book after book
Oh,
after book with the same
oh right.
characters,
Oh yeah.
um, in the same world. I may actually carry over some of the characters from
Mm-hmm.
the Overlook series, the Overlook
Mm-hmm.
trilogy, and and just kind of set it in the same area, but do kind of a procedural, but there's going to be a dog, there's going to be fire, and you're going to have a really complex character, main character protagonist coming out of that. So I have a lot of really cool ideas and a lot of research that I'm doing right now, while I'm still working with some people. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that, but I may actually pitch that traditionally, and see how that
Okay.
goes.
Mm-hmm.
I had
Yeah.
my fun getting my idea out of my head and accomplishing the things that I've been able to accomplish. And now I want to, see what the next step is. And
Well, you'll have three books that,
mhm.
might help you sell it to your other
May,
series to the
I
publisher.
yeah, again, going to a lot of conventions and talking to people who are in the industry, I've heard
Yeah.
mixed on that. Some people are like, it'll be great because you'll already have a platform and um, agents and publishing houses may be interested. The fact that you kind of did your own thing, but also a lot of them may be like, well, he's already, worn damaged property. So I think it's going to be about finding the right relationship again. You
True.
know, find somebody who's, going to be as motivated to do this as I am and
Hmm.
building that team.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I'll self-publish them again. I
Yeah.
don't have, any worries. And every day I'm learning something new about the industry or about writing or about, because it's a whole world and you just
Oh,
gotta be
yeah.
immersed in it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons I went independent was like if I have to do my own marketing anyway, I might as well be able to make some of the decisions.
Yeah.
So
And is a big component of your marketing podcasting being a podcast guest?
that's what I've done.
Uh-huh.
I joined Podmatch, where we
Right.
met, about a
Hmm.
year ago, and I kind of did some of the, there's a couple of podcasters that, they take anybody, and they're
Right.
just looking for, I'm saying they just have, quantity. Like they're doing, 15-minute podcasts, 6 or 7 times a day, so they have constant content going out there. But then
Right.
I found a lot of really cool podcasts like this, talking about creative stuff and just having a conversation.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've done ones on time management because again I'm having to
Oh, yeah.
switch all these things around, and at the time I was actually using my time really well. It's a again I had a career change, and I
Yeah.
getting promoted kind of threw that off a little bit, but
Hmm.
about time management or talking again, having the public safety aspect. I found a lot of really cool podcasts talking about public safety,
All
and so they'll
right.
bring in the fact, hey, he's a cop but he's writing, and this is how
Yeah.
to demonstrate for other first responders, this is an option you can do. Tell your stories, get
Yes.
that out, wellness kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I found a lot of cool stuff. So I found a lot of different cool audiences through podcasts.
That's great. That is fantastic. Yeah, when I get my second one published, I'm going to market them together, and I've decided I'm going to seek out some because I do guest as well as host.
Hmm.
And I'm going to seek out some podcasts to, to promote the books, just promote the book. Well,
Yeah.
promote probably everything I do, but the books mostly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do so many things. It's hard to. I admire people who say, "Oh, this is my lane." I don't have a lane. I have this lane over here. um,
But you're having a good time and you're smiling, and that's all that matters.
I,
You gotta enjoy the time that we have,
that's right. That's right.
and do the things you're passionate about. And I think that's really cool. Like I said, I learned some of the stuff before coming on the show, but learning about the different podcasts, working with your sister, and
Hmm.
you have a creative spouse. That's really
Hmm.
cool too. And
Yeah.
that's amazing. And that's you just enjoy life. Podcast I was on, I think it was last night or the night before, we're just
Uh-huh.
talking about, what's your advice for other writers? And I was like, just do it, you know, you
Yeah.
know, try to make it the best you
Yeah.
can, but
Right.
do it. I mean, it's, you know, somebody may laugh at you and somebody may pick on you, but someone else is going to come up and tell you, "Hey, I really liked that." And
Yes.
that's going to feel that's going to trump everybody else kind of,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
being
Yeah.
somewhat negative or being, kind of blasé about it.
Yeah.
The one person who likes it, it trumps all that other stuff. So,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so great. Do you have anything you want to say before we go?
um, no, I think we kind of said a ton of stuff. So, a little bit all over the place, but those are the fun podcasts.
Yes. Yeah. So go read. Now, what's the title of your book again?
All right. So, and again, this is another thing I've learned too. First book is called Our Lady of the Overlook. It is available on my website, rlcarpentierwriter.com. And I
Yes.
personalize and sign them and all that
Oh,
cool stuff.
that's
Um,
cool.
for those who like the physical copies. For
Yes.
ebooks, I am on Amazon. You can purchase the ebook, or I'm on Kindle Unlimited right now. So
Mhm.
if you're already paying for Kindle, give it a whirl. I get paid on every page turn that you do. So every time you can do that. And soon I'll be on audio. I'm hoping in the first part of the new year. Um,
On
my
Audible?
on Audible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm doing Audible
Uh-huh.
exclusive. So,
Okay.
that's the first book. Second book is called Quiet Whispers of the Overlook. Also on all the same stuff. If you look up one, you'll see both because it's book two of the trilogy.
Right.
And after I get the first audio on that done, I'll have my narrator do the second one, and
Cool.
so that'll all be out there. Again, if your audiobook's probably in the new year, and everything else right now. So if you're interested, that's where you can go and find them. And I appreciate anybody who does.
Yes, and I will have all your socials, and I'll have show notes for you, your bio and all that too. On the like Spotify and Apple and some of the other ones. So yeah, go read the books because man, I was reading all day and I was like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next?
I really appreciate you saying that. That's really cool.
So I will be writing a review, and that's the other thing. When you read somebody's book, go write a review for them because even if it's a bad review, it helps the algorithm to,
Yep.
for people, for the authors, it helps them. So, well, thank you so much for being my guest.
And thank you for having me, Lucinda. I had a great time.
Oh, good. Thanks, Rodney.
I hope you not only enjoyed this episode but gained something valuable to take away with you. If you like what you heard, please share it with your friends and give us a rating and or review. If you're a story lover too, I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or you might be interested in classic cinema with the Sage Sisters, a YouTube channel and Facebook page I started with my sister Celeste, where we choose one classic movie that we think still has lessons for us today. As you can see, I'm passionate about spreading the love of stories and completely believe what Philip Pullman said. After nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.